Welcome to Grain Marketing Update with Matt Bennett. Beck's Hybrids. We're going to talk a little bit about profitability and just looking at, for instance, this 26 situation. We'll go back into the app. It's something we've done before. It might have been one of the episodes where you couldn't see everything I was doing. Kind of got all those bugs worked out. Obviously, it's Thanksgiving week, so I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. I know that it's a kind of a slow week, as far as markets go, but a lot of folks have family around and fun stuff going on. So, but still, there's a lot of us that has to still work and try to get some things knocked out. That's kind of the situation I'm in here today. So, we're going to go over the app a little bit, and I want to talk to you and just kind of relay one of the things that I've been looking at. Let me see if I can pull this up to where you can see exactly what I'm looking at. Let me look at the Ag Market app. Okay, so this is my app, as a lot of you guys have seen. Okay, with this particular farm, it's the same farm we looked at before. This operation, as of this point, as you can see here, I want to go back out and show you kind of what I've done. Essentially what I've done here is I have highlighted, a 230 APH, a 240 yield goal. Selecting the location that I've got here gives me an estimated price per bushel of around 439. Cost per acre, I put in here 0 because I want to show you, what it looks like to come in here and itemize some of these things. So if I come in here and I manage my profitability, I want to look at, the initial break even. Yes, it looks awfully high at 454. I mean, my cash price today is not 454. As you can see, it shows net profit per acre of a negative $35.40. And so clearly that doesn't work very well. If I come in here and I look at my costs, for instance, cash rent and land costs, 325. That's just an average of everything for this particular farm. With the 325, it's probably low for some people. It may be a little high for some people. If you own all your ground that's paid for, clearly you're in the driver's seat whenever it comes to this profitability discussion. Chemicals, that includes fungicide. And so I'm looking at my total chemical program, including fungicide. Of course, it's going to be below 100 for most of us as far as our chemical program goes. But with one fungicide application, most of us are going to get above that $100 type level. If I look at fertility, that's where I want to kind of hone in on today. So if I looked at like a 250 and 250 program in my part of the world last fall, not this fall, and normal anhydrous, if you will. And of course, this is a corn example. Obviously, paying for that, especially this year with potash. Potash was actually decent, but phosphate prices up there around $900 a ton. I mean, clearly very expensive. Most of you that have given me feedback that I've talked to cut back on phosphate rates somewhat this year. If you are in a position where your fertility is in really good shape, by all means, I don't have an issue with a person going to the bank, so to speak, and taking a draw out. Clearly, I don't advocate cutting back on fertilizer or cutting back on fertility. But at the same time, this is a very unique year, in that we're looking at prices right now 10 cents below last year's spring insurance price. So with D's hovering around 460, I'm looking at a real struggle to find black ink. So, if we just want to be real fair about it, I want to go in here and look at fertility, and everyone's got a little bit different program. But if I take my fertility per acre down to just $200 an acre, and then I come back up and I look, now my initial break even price is in this 433 level. And so clearly, if we've made an adjustment, we need to know exactly how that adjustment affects our bottom line, affects our break even, and then what we can start to do with that. So if I go back out and I want to go to my farm profile, I'm going to save the changes that I made, go back in here and look, what does it look like to go ahead and make a sale? Okay. So if we're sitting here around 460 today, most of us are going to struggle to get, a price that's going to be much above this 433. But I'm going to go in here and make a sale. I mean, last week we had some 470 basis the board type prices. If I come in here and I say, well, I'm going to go ahead and just do like an HTA. And maybe just for example's sake, I'm going to come in here a week ago. If that's when you made a sale, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna look at 26, of course, because this is going to be basis 26. And I'm going to say it's going to be like a fall delivery type situation. Bushels sold, you've got unsold bushels of 360,000. So again, for example's sake, we're going to sell a quarter of that. And I know typically most of us aren't going to sell a quarter all at one time. I'm basing on December futures price. My HTA level is around 470. And then I am going to forecast that my basis, will be around 25 under. And so clearly that gives me a 445 type price. How does a 445 type price make all of this look? So my initial break even, is 433 a bushel. As you can see here, my dynamic break even, which this up here, we'll save it. This up here is not changed for some reason, but it gives me a dynamic break even around 429 per bushel. All right. Now, bottom line is, if we wouldn't have changed our fertilizer price, if we wouldn't have backed off, we would have already been way behind the 8 ball. I firmly believe that was not a bad decision. Now, I've had some people come in and tell me, that they're in a totally different situation where they actually drop back even more. And so I just want to go back and look at that again. I'm going to manage my profitability, go back. And if I have a guy say, well, I spent $100 on my anhydrous, but I dropped my phosphate back to, let's say, 150. Didn't put any potash on this year, because I'm trying to save a few pennies. And so I'm going to drop this thing back. Let's say we drop it back to like 165 bucks an acre. And so if we drop to 165 bucks an acre, that puts my initial break even at 418 a bushel. As you can see, now I've put myself in a position, where I'm around 53.20 as far as net profit per acre, which are types of numbers that we really haven't had a lot of opportunity to see. So I go back to my farm profile and I want to look at this and say, hey, now I'm in this position, okay, where I actually have meat on the bone. I can do something with these price levels. And so, I may put some target orders in place. If I want to run a scenario just to see, what does this look like? Let me get back up here. If I want to run a scenario just to see, what does it look like if I'm in a position, where, oh, I don't know, I want to make a sale. And I just want to talk real quick about some of you who've got bin space, for instance. If I hedge 470 corn for next fall, I've got bin space. I look at this last fall. What was the carry from D's to July? And it hovered between 30 and 35 cents for quite some time. With it hovering around 30 to 35 cents, obviously we're looking at having a lot of corn on hand. There's a chance we're going to have a heck of a lot of corn on hand again next fall. I don't expect acres to plummet. I do expect them to pull back, but regardless, if we can assume, for instance, a 30-cent carry from D's to July, if I would roll that thing next fall from 470 D's corn out to July, and maybe it costs me a nickel, I've worked myself into $5 basis of board. And for those of you that can get an over basis sometime between next fall and the following summer, you're looking at $5 corn. I mean, there's a way to work yourself into a $5 corn type situation. But if I just want to look at this and just say, hey, I've got all these bushels, 270,000 unsold still. If I want to test, what's it look like, to sell a decent chunk of that? And I want to get a nice round figure. So let's do 120,000 bushel. That's, of course, going to be 24 contracts, interest costs for most of us. Let's call it 6.5. Obviously, interest has come down just a little. And so if I'm in this situation, I want to test, what's it look like if I sell futures, at like a 470 price? I'm going to sell 24 contracts. And then what I want to do is I want to come down here and I want to test, what do these numbers look like? So let's say 375, 4, 4 1/4, 450, and so on and so forth. And so I'm going to test and see what's it look like if the market goes to these types of levels, because what it's going to do is give me just a little bit of confidence to step in and do something here. And so clearly, if I'm in a position where I have hedged, what it's going to do for me is that I'm going to be insulated if I hedge up in this level down to this 4 to 4.25 type level, whereas you can get into some negative returns. Where would we be insulated there? Clearly, we're going to be insulated if you've got a crop insurance program. uh, I don't know what the spring price is going to be. Chances are we're looking at something similar to what we looked at a year ago. So at 85% level, anything under 4, you're going to be somewhat insulated. And so what this does for me is it shows that what I've got is I've got unprotected value here and then gross revenue locked in. So I want to get these lines as close as I can to mitigate my risk as much as I possibly can. So, there's no doubt whenever it comes to risk management, it can be very complicated. But at the same time, we got to be in a position where, we at least understand how this all works. I mean, I need to know what do I need to do to mitigate as much risk as I possibly can on the farm, and then get my numbers to where they're just as good as they can possibly be. And so, bottom line for me, some of you guys have asked if I would walk through these scenarios again. And there's no doubt that it's complicated to put together the whole farm situation, but is it worth the time? I mean, in my opinion, I couldn't imagine that there's anything more worth the time, especially when we've been in this situation where we've been kind of fighting for our lives, if you will, whenever it comes to net profit margins. So I hope that we get a little bit of a, rally going into Christmas. I mean, the old adage is that bears get Thanksgiving, bulls get Christmas. If that's the case this year and you do get a price run up again, up to this 470 level and above, I think we need to start thinking about, what can we do, especially on some of our bin corn, to work ourselves into a position, where we've got a pretty decent price level locked in. If you do a straight up hedge, obviously that's marginable for you personally. If you do an HTA, someone else is assuming that risk. There's a little bit of a cost involved, no question about it. I would certainly work on whoever you're working with. One more thing I want to talk about is cash corn before we go. I've heard a lot of basis pushes on cash corn over the last week or two. There's no question that you need to be very open with your cash originator about how many bushels you've got on the farm, what kind of price level you're looking for, because typically you see traffic slow down just a little bit as far as corn moving when you get around the holidays. A lot of people are gone, a lot of people aren't hauling, and sometimes these guys get in a little bit of a pinch. So we've seen some of the folks that are originators bringing in December contracts this week, a week early. Because why? Because they don't have enough corn sitting around. And that tells you, that there's a possibility that you can get a push for your corn. So any questions, once again, continue to send them my way. I appreciate the emails that some of you guys have sent. I'm going to try to revisit the profitability type deal at least once a month, because I want to keep it updated. I want us all to understand the value of knowing our numbers and keeping them as updated as we possibly can. If you want to leave a comment here, that's fine. You can certainly email me as well. So I appreciate you tuning in, and have a great Thanksgiving.